Yeah, that one. Hello, everybody. My name is Sean Atkinson. I'm a partner at Orrick, Harrington, Suffolk. I have the pleasure of speaking to one of my friends, colleagues from Yamaha Ventures, Kai Onishi. Kai, do you want to join us? Well, they didn't leave us any water left.
Yeah.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Should we get one?
No, I think we'll be okay.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining me up here. I think part of this room would like to know, I certainly would like to know, a little bit more about your fund, about your mission statement, we all know about what Yamaha is. Little boys in the room anyway remember the motorcycles when we were kids.
Yeah.
So mobility is obviously a pretty common thread that would make sense to us. But I think there's a little bit more about what your fund is, what your themes are, investment thesis. Why don't you talk to us about that?
Okay, sure. So probably some of you might be confused between Yamaha Motor Corporation and Yamaha Corporation. Actually, music instrument company is different company. So absolutely music is not one of our investment focus area. And maybe if you're interested in, please Google the logos for Yamaha Corporation and Yamaha Motor Corporation. There are significant difference actually. So hope you can tell the difference. Some of our employees also confused. And so we are Yamaha Motor Ventures, and currently we are managing one fund, 100 million, 10 years, and our investment thesis is around accelerating the possibility for society and also Yamaha Motor itself as well to build new businesses for the next 5 to 10 years. And our focus area is around mobility, land, sea, and aviation. And that's one. And second part is the healthcare, wellness. And the third part is the food and agriculture. So those are the focus areas. Yeah.
Can you talk just a little bit about the last one you mentioned, food and agriculture, because that's something I'd naturally associate with mobility. How does that play into it? And is that a part of your business in Japan that perhaps this audience doesn't know about, or how does that work?
Yeah, so actually we have a business unit that have been serving to farmers for more than 20 years, but basically in Japan and South Korea. So we have the unmanned helicopter business unit, and that spray pesticide to mainly for a paddy field in Japan. And 40% of the paddy field in Japan is actually sprayed by our unmanned helicopter. And so if you eat any rice ball in Japan, 40% of the rice is sprayed by our product. So it's food and agriculture is not actually the pretty new for Yamaha. So it's embedded in our business. And interestingly, back in 2008, that was the year I joined Yamaha. And of course, everyone was quite facing a tough time due to financial crisis. But that year, our unmanned helicopter business unit, agriculture business unit, was the almost only business unit still making money. So it was really fascinating for me as a new joiner to company. We were losing tons of money from motorcycle business unit and marine business units, like outboard engines or boats, because those products are sort of nice to have in many countries, but food is daily necessity. So I still remember, I was so impressed by the differences of nature of businesses and within one roof of Yamaha.
Yeah, so you don't need a motorboat, but you do need cereals.
Yeah.
So tell us about what the difference is. When you're going to market, what's the differentiator then for you versus anybody else's capital in the room or capital in the market? Is there something that you bring to the table that's special?
Yeah, sure. So So probably there are similar aspects that differentiate Yamaha Motor Ventures in this competitive industry. So absolutely the A, we have GPLP structure. So we have separate entity, like we have fund now. So Yamaha Motor Venture was established in 2015, and at that time, we started startup investment completely from the balance sheet. So as you can imagine, all decision should be made by parent company headquarters, and it takes forever. Especially like we have been focusing on U.S. market, U.S. or Oceania, and but the parent executives are based in Japan, and of course there are language barrier, and if we've been focusing on like those mobility or food or healthcare, which is quite new for senior executives. So it took really long time for us to, sounds arrogant, but train the executives. But it actually paid off. Like in 2018, we decided to establish a fund structure, and GPLP, only YMC, which is Yamaha Motor Corporation headquarters in Japan, is a solo LP. And that structure allowed us to be quite agile and quickly make decision. For example, after this call, actually, we will have the IC meeting, and people, like we have IC members from headquarters, but like they are quite enjoying joining the call and make decisions, and that kind of speed of the decision making is absolutely the one differentiator. And second part would be how we interact with our portfolio companies. So in early days, we were trying to form projects with the portfolio companies. Maybe if we invest in robotics company, why don't we just collaborate, bring our robotics business unit people in and create some like collaborative robot that can work with you in restaurant, that kind of project, like a co-development. But not all the time that kind of projects works well. So what we just started from this year is we don't necessarily to form a project with startups, our portfolio companies, but rather than asking them to help us or start something new, we started focusing on supporting portfolio companies. Interesting case is like we invested in a strawberry harvester company, the automatic strawberry harvesting company based in Davis in California, and the company name is Advanced Farm Technologies. And it's fascinating. Their product can pick 120,000 strawberries per day automatically, which is great. And what we are doing right now is we sent our engineers to the company, and one mechanical engineer and another like software engineer to them. So looks like it doesn't quite make sense for us because we are not getting immediate return. We cannot start a new business internally, but I think it's really good investment for us. It's a mid-term to long-term play, but the objective of having the CVC arm is to build new business of Yamaha. And so creating new business is all about people and all about creating another new culture within the Yamaha. And the culture should be created by each individuals. So rather than focusing on developing new products, we focus on developing people. And I'm okay with those two engineers find super interesting opportunity in Silicon Valley, or find like working in startup environment is much interesting than working in corporation. I'm fine with it. If they leave our Yamaha, that's still okay for me, as long as they find what matter most to them. So we are focusing on helping startups and also developing our talents. And actually, I think it's a big differentiator of Yamaha, for Yamaha when we hire new talents, not only in US, but also in Japan or other part of the company, other part of the world.
And so just looking at that for a second, we'll step back. In terms of geographic footprint, where those people are that you're looking at hiring and wherever, I mean, are you mainly in the US? Are you thinking of growing that? Or is it mainly at home in Japan, South Korea? Where do you see the opportunities and where are the people based?
Yeah, so currently, the most of R&D activities are happening in Japan. And back 7 to 8 years ago, our parent company started hiring directly from other countries outside of Japan, and focusing on Southeast Asia, like Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, Singapore, China, India. So we are trying to diversify the origin of our engineers, not only engineers, but also marketers, etc.
And what about the investment professionals within your fund?
So for investment, so we only have hired people from the people in US right now. But our portfolio companies is located not only in here, but also like Australia or New Zealand, Ireland, and Brazil. It's across the globe. So we are choosing the region that we should focus on. Like we are expanding, like innovation is not happening only in here. In some industry, it's that you need to hyper-localize the solution or technology to fit to the customer's needs. So to understand that, we need to hire, we need to have someone else on the ground. For example, we launched Yamaha Motor Sustainability Fund. That is the second fund of Yamaha Motor Ventures, and we published the news release 2 days ago. By the way, after the news release, our stock price instantly increased 2.6%, which is equivalent to $200 million market cap, which is fascinating.
And how large was the fund?
100 million. Well, we haven't spent $0 from the fund yet, so technically it's an infinite return to shareholders. But for talking about sustainability, of course, technology might come from US, but market should be in Asia or probably Europe. So I think we need to build a network relationship with VC community and startup community in Europe. So that could be one of our focus area in the near future if we want to expand the team.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, actually, going a little off-piste. It has been well documented that R&D spend in the United States has been plummeting over the last 25 years, whereas it's been growing in most other markets, notably actually in Europe, and that's not just because I'm based there. Mm-hmm. So does that impact trajectory in terms of where you think you'll be spending more time?
Yeah, I think so. After I started working in this startup ecosystem, how you allocate your time will directly impact on the performance of the fund or company. Like if you spend more time with your team members, the culture of the company will get better. If you spend more time with the parent company, LP, you can build a good relationship. If we want to work on the specific regions, I think we have to spend more time maybe talking with people.
Oh, I agree with that. So why don't we hit a couple of nuts and bolts for the audience? Target, how many companies do you sort of target per year or for the fund, and what's the investment size and thesis around that? A couple million, a little more, a little less? How does that work?
Yeah. So currently we are focusing on from seed to Series B, and the first check size would be like $500K to $1 million, but the objective of our funds are exploration. What kind of new technology or new business model or new market, new industry might be the next target that Yamaha needs to expand our business. So Yamaha's history is all about expansion. So keep adding new business units, like motorcycle, boats, and robotics, and pool, and e-bikes, and what's next. So after e-bike businesses, we haven't added new business for 20 years. So it's not the healthy situation for us. So our diversification is our history and how we grow. So that's why we are not going to be a case study in business school. We don't concentrate, but we keep diversifying. So to explore new opportunities, we have to have a capability. We have to allocate resources to multiple industry, multiple businesses or technologies. So we limit amount of capital allocated to each portfolio company. That allows us to explore different type of businesses.
Cool. Okay. So and then maybe sort of direction and wrap it up. And I know there's been a common theme with some of the people here on the stage, but also everybody in the room thinking about where we are, where do we go from here? 2022 is a little different than 2021. I'll give you my view on that. I don't think the world's about to fall over. I'm old enough to have been through a couple cycles. I think we're long-term investors and players in the market. So if people are worried about risk, then they're probably in the wrong room. But I would call this a bit of a pause. I don't know where it goes, but what do you think? What do you think the next 12 months or so feels like? And does that impact your approach to how many term sheets you're going to rush out to write and execute on?
Yeah. So far we've seen the dramatic changes in the climate in VC industry and startup ecosystem, but so far there's something that has changed and also something that hasn't changed. Let me start from something that has changed for us. We usually don't primarily we don't take lead. We don't lead the round, but the major investors or other independent type of independent VCs. They set really high bar to raise another financing round. Something it sounds sometimes maybe too much, but everyone becomes more cash conscious, and I think it's healthy. We can looking at the data from for example PitchBook, 2021 is really crazy. In terms of valuation, it's really outlier looking at these 4 years. So it becomes really helpful. I think for us as an investor, probably the climate will be more applicable, and but also we need to look at we need to have the good way to do due diligence to pick the right ones. That's something that has changed. And something that hasn't changed on us is we still have healthy pipelines, and sometimes we don't get good deals, but in looking at thinking back about these 2 months or 3 months, we still meet with really good companies and with good technology, good IP, and good customers and good sales team. So having good deal flow hasn't changed, I feel, and probably it's thanks to the incredible team members in Yamamoto Ventures and also friends in here and the friends who couldn't make it here. They were really helpful to keep our business running.
Maybe one way to look at it is that if things were fine January 2020. And then things sort of went upside down a little bit. Yeah. The sun stayed out 24 hours a day for 20 months, so the crops grew. But now we're going back to a time where it's a little bit more normal.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a more positive spin than the sky is falling.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yes.
All right. Well, I think we're out of time.
Yeah.
But thanks so much for this.
Thank you so much.
Audience, thanks to Yamaha Ventures and Kai.
Thank you so much.